quirks, because I feel like I know Brenda's quirks and then she knows my quirks. So I throw
them for a loop once in a while.
Yeah, for as medical as this whole screen looks, it's pretty easy to go through. It's very much so a question on an activity of daily living. So it'll be, does this person need help bathing? And then has it always been that way? Is it a new occurrence? And it asks for a timeline. There's also a manual that goes with this that will go into a little bit more depth. We included, I want to say, the first little appendix that they have, and it's just a quick, line by line what should go in each of those. But if any of you want to kind of dive deeper into this, feel free to shoot us an email. I ran out of business cards, so not all of you got mine, but in your folder you either have mine or Brenda's.
And the website's there too, where you can access the manual.
Yeah, so once again, it's a screening device. It's not a diagnostic instrument. It's not going to 100% show dementia. Completed. 4 key sections. This is what I was talking about earlier. So the chronic health conditions. Are there other things that this individual has? Do they have chronic UTIs? Is this something that we know that it should be taken off first on that differential diagnosis? Mental health and life stressors, that's a huge one, especially with, it's about 50% of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities have some sort of co-occurring mental health, so anxiety or depression, and both of those after a long time can look like dementia. They're one of those, somewhat treatable causes of dementia. And then these activities of daily living, sleep-wake patterns. So it could be a symptom that, if somebody was always getting up in the morning and right away they're a total morning person, not me, but somebody, and now they can't get up in the morning. That could be a change in personality and a change of their sleep-wake cycle. So why is all this needed? Once again, it kind of brings about that dialogue with your healthcare professional and that team, so that you can be informed, your doctor can be informed, and any sort of support staff that are going along can know that, hey, that there's maybe some changes going on. Will you please let us know if you notice anything? I keep talking about job coaches because once again, going around the state and doing these presentations, we hear a lot that some of the people who notice some of these symptoms first are job coaches, someone who spends a lot of time with an individual, but it's not to the point where you're with them every day, so that you don't notice some of these small changes, because it's so gradual. So over 2 years, you might not notice that someone is a little less social, but somebody else might say, hey, what's the deal?
Well, and the job coaches usually have them doing certain tasks, and so now suddenly they're not doing those tasks the same way that they used to do them, or as easily. Someone mentioned about going down and getting soda, and they noticed over time that this person would always go down and get the soda. They knew what sodas to get down in the basement, and then suddenly he's not getting the right sodas or having a more difficult time with those sodas.
So this is kind of just a very brief overview on what that process looks like. So starting with screening, so we would say to use this NTG ADSD tool, and then going to an official assessment. So going in, so it's CT or MRIs on there now. I know that there's a new type of PET scan that they've been experimenting with that they're using. Oh, it's this special tracer that can trace the beta amyloid. It's one of those things that's like $10,000 or $15,000 for a scan, but years from now it'll be a little bit more affordable. But there's up until the last couple of years, there haven't really been too many ways to see that the brain had been shrinking and to say for sure that it was a cause of Alzheimer's. So then you go from that official assessment, and then you go through the diagnosis. So it might start with a possible or probable dementia, and then as you go through that differential diagnosis, you'll cross things out. And then they can say, yes, that's the diagnosis we're going to stick with because we haven't been able to find anything else that could be causing this. Differential.
So again, the important, we keep bringing it up, differential diagnosis, because I think you can tell how important that is. So making sure you rule out those treatable conditions and the person's getting the appropriate treatment support services for those conditions so that the person can maintain the highest possible quality of life and functioning. Remember, a change in behavior is a clue that something's going on. So Joe's not getting the soda anymore from the basement or the cracked soda. Something's changed, something's going on with Joe. Again, these are common conditions to aging that look like dementia. We've talked about that quite a bit.
Yeah.
Here's a list that Jeremy was talking about earlier. Some of those common conditions you want to make sure that you rule out first. We talked about the auditory, the sensory impairments, cardiovascular disease, certainly something we all are aware about and concerned about, you know, our diet, our health, like we talked about earlier about healthy aging. That hypothyroidism, thyroidism, dehydration we've talked about, you know, just simple sleep apnea. If that person isn't getting enough sleep at night, what's going on, you know, with that? Again, that's treated, I mentioned it earlier, the 3 Ds with dementia. It's going to be something that comes over time. It's not something sudden. But when you're talking about delirium, something like that, maybe it's UTI that's going on and getting that ruled out. Maybe it's pneumonia. Oftentimes, especially in our older adults, pneumonia. There's an onset of pneumonia. Or constipation is even something that can bring that on. And then depression, making sure we rule that out. Is the person now more lethargic? Is there a change in attitude, change in appetite? What's going on with this person, and making sure we're looking at depression as well.
So these are kind of out of order, but it really goes delirium, depression, and then dementia. So the delirium is, you know, think of heat stroke. Someone who's been outside all day and is all of a sudden just can't focus on anything. They're you know, some of those classic signs of dementia. And then with depression being somewhere in between that, you know, a couple days to a couple weeks, and then dementia gradual over months or years. Healthcare advocacy. I love that somebody, who was it earlier, that said, I am their healthcare advocate. Yes. This is huge, especially with this population. For a lot of individuals with IDD, they are living with a family member. They are living with you know, a roommate or somebody. And so having someone in that doctor's appointment that doesn't talk for them. Like I said, I work with a lot of transition-aged youth on the side, and so we really try to push that people advocate for themselves. But as some of these new symptoms come on, you know, it could get a lot harder for that person to say, hey, I'm in pain here, or this is happening, and that could be why there are behavior issues. And so kind of you know, being that advocate, saying, hey, I know my adult child with IDD, and you know, this isn't like them, and you know, maybe they're having issues with pain. Sometimes they have pain in their side or their shoes, something like that. But yes, it sounds like you're very well educated on healthcare advocacy. We also know family members, the doctors are going to want to hear from you. They're going to know that you've had that longest relationship. You or siblings, you know, we're getting to that point Brenda said earlier that you know, someone who's 40 with Down syndrome could have parents who are 65, you know, and they're both going through this kind of differential diagnosis at the same time. And so remembering that, you know, siblings can be great healthcare advocates is huge. The ladies who trained us, the Cathys, seriously, there's like 5
There's a lot of Cathys.
They're all named Kathy. They're huge.
Well, there's Catherine in the
Yeah. They love this one because healthcare is an art, it's not a science. You know, it's one of those things where, once again, you know, aging and everything's going to affect people as an individual. There are some, you know, overlapping things we can generalize a little bit, but it really is, it's an art form. So healthcare advocacy is really kind of bringing that to the doctor's office. Once again, healthcare advocacy, diagnostic overshadowing really go together. You know, having someone say, hey, I don't think that this is just, you know, this individual aging with Down syndrome. I think that it's something else. Don't just attribute it to that or a pre-occurring IDD of some other sort. You know, being able to say that.
So we didn't get a feel of who's in our audience, actually. How many of you are professionals in the field or professionals as a caregiver? Okay, you can raise your hand again. My next question. How many are your family members? Okay, so this next section could provide some helpful information for you as well.
How many of you are family members that would say you're a caregiver? All right.
See all of you.
That's great. So many times people will just say, yeah, people will just say, you know, I'm not a caregiver. I don't provide cares. It's a family member. It's just what you do. You know, there's nothing that I'm providing cares, but that's a lot of what we're doing is getting people to realize like, hey, you are providing cares, and you need to, you know, care for the caregiver. That's we're in Milwaukee for a caring for the caregiver conference come December, and it's very important. So I'm really glad to see that everyone raised their
and there's a
hand.
lot of guilt, as you know, that comes with it. You know, I talked about my brother earlier, and he would never consider himself labeled as a caregiver. He's my mom's son, and he feels like this is his responsibility. And it's really important, you know, I would say to him, Brad, it's okay. She needs more help now. It's okay. We can have her go into the hospital and find out what's going on. We can do these types of things. You don't have to take care of her completely. We need to find out what else is going on. And if we need more assistance, it's okay, you know. But, you know, I think there's just an inner guilt, too, that kind of runs with families and that it's your responsibility. And for us, it's our mom. She did everything she could for us. I mean, he and I could both tell many stories of all the great things our mom did for us. So, you know, that's embedded in our brain, and it's hard for us to rewire that and change the thinking that we now get to help her, and we're sort of the parent now.
Yeah, I always use the example. So my oldest brother has cerebral palsy, and so growing up, we would feed him as siblings, and you know, as I got older and could lift him, we'd help take him to the bathroom. As needed. I mean, my parents were great about, you know, trying to take it all on themselves, but you know, really up until I started on this grant, I never would have been like, yeah, I was a caregiver, I gave cares. It was just like, oh yeah, my brother needs to eat. So once again, it's a pat on your back, because it's good.
And so we also have a change in perspective. Like when our mom first had the stroke, it was like, how far can we get her? You know, she was basically what you would say is a vegetable. She had bleeding in the brainstem. She couldn't walk, she couldn't talk, she couldn't even roll over in bed. When we got her to the point she was walking with a cane and she only had short-term memory issues. That was 15 years ago. So for us, the goal was how far can we go? Can we keep moving with this person? And so, you know, that developmental perspective. And now you're switching over when you start, you know, finding these